Well, it's a nice day at the farm. It's starting to rain just a little. We got a special treat today, guys. I got myself a helper. She's not been up here in a few weeks. Mama Cat is at the mill. All right, friends, welcome back to the Sawmill. It's Monday, and today I'm going to answer a question that I get on a lot of videos. I get a lot of emails as well about this. If you send me an email with a question, most of the time I don't have time to respond. If you really need to have some advice or some counseling on sawmilling, go over and check out the Patreon site. Those questions right there go to the top of my tier on my email, and I answer those the same day I get them most of the time. So if you're interested in getting some one-on-one consulting on sawmilling or kiln drying, you can look me up on Patreon. There's a link down in the video description. Something else I put on Patreon, I also list how much the log costs when I buy it, how much slabs are selling for in my market, and stuff like that. A lot of useful information over there. So go check it out if you're interested. If you're running the sawmill, I can probably help you out somehow, hopefully. And if I don't have the answer, I can find the answer for you, put it that way. So this log right here is a nasty white oak. Most sawmills would have this in the firewood pile or the pulpwood pile. They wouldn't fool with it. The commercial sawmills would not touch it. This thing right here would go straight from the log truck to the pulpwood pile. A smaller sawmill business like mine would probably take a second look at it, but you probably wouldn't buy it. And I'm a sucker. I actually bought this log, but that's a whole other story right there. But the thing about logs like this is there's a little bit of value in them. People ask me a lot, and I'm getting around to the question now, how small of a log can you saw in a Wood-Mizer? And the smallest I've done up to this point is about 10 inches on the small end. This one today is 7 inches on the far end down here, and the large end, I can't remember. I'm pulling my tape out of my holster here without ripping off this microphone. I'm trying to do this wireless mic system here. I think the audio is doing better since I started doing that. 10 inches. So we got 10 inches on the large end, the small end is 7 inches. And I just don't know what's going to come out of this log, guys. This is nothing but pure juvenile wood. When I talk about juvenile wood, that's the first 15 to 25 years of growth of a tree. So if you think about looking at the end of the tree, you got the heart or the pith right there in the center. The growth rings are coming out. The first 15 to 25 years of growth, which is 25 growth rings, is what a lot of people would refer to as juvenile wood. There's a ton of stress in that wood. You don't know what it's going to do. And it's really hard to get good usable lumber out of stuff like that when you're doing 1x or 2x4s. So on a log like this, you could do 1x. If I was going to do 1x, I'd take it straight to the project and hang it up green because it's going to bow and cup and twist and everything. 2x4s would be even worse because when you go to Lowe's and Home Depot and you see, you go down the lumber aisle and all those guys are out there at their 2x4s and they're all looking down every single one of them. You know how they do? They look down at them, they sight them, look on both sides, Sometimes they look so fast, I'm not sure if they're even looking at them. They're looking for that crown, and that crown comes from juvenile wood because if you look at the growth rings on that pine or fir or whatever they got at Home Depot or Lowe's where you live, that's usually fast-growing timber, and it's usually smaller pine logs. I've been to Georgia and places and saw the lots where they're growing, pine plantations where they're growing that stuff for 2x4s, and they're harvesting that stuff within the first 15 to 20 years sometimes. And that's nothing but juvenile wood, and that's why a lot of your 2x4s have that big crown in them. Some are worse than others. So I said all that to say this. I'm not doing 1x because I don't want to put this up on as siding right now. I don't really have time. I got too much going on right now. I'm not going to do 2x4s because they would just jump off the mill as we saw them. So I'm going to try to do a 4x4 and maybe a 5x5. I need to look at my toolbox and see what kind of cant size I can get with an 8-inch small or 7-inch diameter log. Probably a 4x4 if I'm lucky, with a little bit of wane by the way it's looking here. It's straight, but there's a lot of large knots on it. It's just a mess. It's probably the third cut of a small white oak tree, judging by what I'm seeing on the limbs right here. This is pretty high up on the tree. And it was just a young tree, guys. It was just, you know, it needed a lot longer to grow to be a good log for timber. But we'll get something useful out of it. A 4x4 I can use on the barn I'm building, you know, or the drying sheds. And 4x4s usually stay decently straight if there's juvenile wood in there, and you keep them out of direct sunlight. So we'll keep it in here in the shed until we're ready to work with it. If we can get a 4x4 out of it, that's what I'm hoping for. So stick with me today, guys. We'll see what kind of timber we can get out of this white oak. Nasty, nasty stuff. Well, this is what we came up with out of that timber, and this isn't bad. It's better than nothing. And a lot of you guys out there just starting out with sawmills, sometimes you can't be real picky about the logs you get because logs are hard to source sometimes. It takes years to find relationships with loggers and tree service guys who will deal with you, trust me. So we ended up with a 4x4 on the bottom. That's what I was after, and that's the actual dimension 4x4. Then above it we got a 2x4. I was hoping for 2 4x4s. I was being kind of optimistic right there, but I didn't think it was going to happen. I was trying to squeeze one of them out with a lot of wane, but it was just too many knots and too much taper on the far end. But I brought the camera in closer when I was sawing into this 2x4, friends. You can see, check it out, that distance right there. That's because of this juvenile wood. It's full of stress. It's full of knots, very unstable, and it's not very good material. You know, the amount of, gosh, it's like 3/4 of an inch right there where it raised up. And if I showed you the other end, it's doing the same thing. So we got a banana sitting up here on top of this 4x4. Now the 4x4 is not too bad. I hope that was helpful and that answers that question, how small of a log you can saw on a mill. Because this was 8 inches on the small, this was 7 inches on the small end. I keep on forgetting, 8 or 7. And you could actually go about 6 inches probably and get a 4x4 out of this still yet. So not too bad. Alright now friends, thanks for sticking with me here to the end. What we're looking at is the log that we're going to saw up on the next video. And what you're looking at is ash. And there's a whole lot to talk about right there. And one of the main things to talk about with ash on the next video is going to be probably within our lifetime. You know, I'm 40 years old, ash will probably be gone. So we'll see you in the next video, guys, and we will open up this ash and see what's inside of it. Should be a pretty good log.